Warframe is one of those games that just keeps on giving. The game, which is free, is constantly growing and developing. It first came out in 2013, but the game that we've got on our hands these days is completely different to what it was back then.
Warframe is a 5-year-old free-to-play game that's still getting massive new features added to it, so it's probably no surprise that the game continues to grow in popularity. On June the 15th of this year, Warframe saw its highest all-time player peak of 128,506 gamers all logged in playing the game at the same time. And that's just on Steam, not counting any other platforms. Speaking of which, developer Digital Extremes has just this weekend, in fact, shared some huge news about platforms at TennoCon, a convention centered solely around Warframe. They announced that Warframe will be coming to the Nintendo Switch. At the time of recording, there is no confirmed release date for the Switch port, but Digital Extremes did confirm it's being developed by Panic Button, the studio who successfully brought Doom, Wolfenstein 2, and Rocket League to the Switch. With Warframe coming to Nintendo's console, it means the free-to-play phenomenon will be available on almost every modern platform with the exception of mobile. Warframe is currently the 4th most popular game on Steam, so being on the Switch as well has the potential to increase the game's player base even further. And if any of the other big releases on Switch are anything to go by, of course it's going to be popular, especially considering the fact that it's free. They bought Fortnite to the Switch. That was unbelievably popular straight away. It was like millions of people jumping in on Fortnite. I have no doubt that it'll be exactly the same for Warframe because it's a popular game on PC. Of course, it's going to be a popular game on the go as well. I'm going to go for it. It's free.
I'll be checking it out. Yeah. And Digital Foundry recently did a video on Panic Button and their port of Wolfenstein 2 onto the Switch. It was very informational, and it just shows how they go about achieving the gameplay at such a high quality. What sacrifices they have to make in terms of graphics and stuff like that, just to make it a playable game. It's really interesting watch, by the way.
Something like Doom and Wolfenstein as well, they're both very fast shooting games with a lot of stuff going on the screen. So the fact that it's running on a Switch at all is really good.
And again, Warframe being one of the most popular games around right now. It was released 5 years ago or so, and very little people heard about it or played it, and those that did, didn't see anything special in it. But we're talking 5 years later, and all this development that they've thrown in over the time, it's word of mouth that's gotten this game popular, and you see it in all the comments and all the videos that mention it. People who
particularly Destiny videos.
People who are disenchanted with the Destiny franchise, lol, just play Warframe. It's pretty much a meme now, but it's true. It's true. Warframe offers something completely different to Destiny. One is that you don't have to pay for it. You don't have to pay £200 for all the content. They got loads of content absolutely free, and they keep doing it, and more of which we'll go into in a second. The follow-up to Warframe's Plains of Eidolon update has now been announced, and it's called Fortuna. Fortuna takes place on the planet Venus and introduces a new faction, hub area, lore, a vehicle, and some new side activities for players to take part in. The new faction is Solaris United, who Digital Extremes described as cyborgs who, quote, dwell in the Blade Runner-esque debt internment colony Fortuna. The debt colony also serves as the new hub city where players can take on bounty missions, pick up quests, and eventually form parties to take on endgame raid bosses. Fortuna will introduce a new weapon crafting system which lets players craft kit guns for the secondary weapon slots. There's also a new open world area included with Fortuna called Orb Valis, which is brimming with activities for players to participate in.
Things like spearfishing and mining will carry over from Plains of Eidolon, but there is also a new animal preservation system which lets players capture animals and extract them Metal Gear Solid 5 style. According to Digital Extremes, Orb Valis is 5 times as big as the Plains of Eidolon and much livelier with new enemies, exotic alien wildlife, and more areas for players to explore. As for the new vehicle, Fortuna introduces a Back to the Future style hoverboard called the K-Drive. Players can use the K-Drive to traverse Orb Valis, but Digital Extremes did say they have no offensive capability yet, and it's something the development team are figuring out. Creative director Steve Sinclair told PC Gamer all the improvements coming in Fortuna will be retroactively applied to Plains of Eidolon at a later date. Warframe Fortuna will launch later this year.
Who doesn't want a hoverboard in the game? If there's one way to set your game apart, it's a hoverboard, right?
Stick a hoverboard in there. Basic game design.
And if the Fortuna update wasn't big enough, Digital Extremes also revealed they were working on another huge update, codename Railjack. Now Railjack will be one of the biggest updates to Warframe yet, introducing space combat with ship-to-ship encounters and 2 new Warframes being thrown into the mix as well. This is it. This is how you do it, right? Completely different gameplay type. This is huge. This is something that's really got my interest, that's for sure. Look at the footage. It looks awesome. We're going to go to more detail now. I just want to say how excited I was. As for how the ships will work, players will team up and take on different roles such as pilot, weapons operator, or repairing the ship's shields, kind of like FTL or Guns of Icarus. And just like FTL, players will have control over the ship's power system. For example, players can divert more power to the weapons for increased damage. Another exciting feature is the ships can be boarded by enemy NPCs who will attack the players on board. But this works both ways, meaning the players themselves will be able to board enemy ships, allowing them to wreak havoc from the inside.
This sounds really cool. I like the idea of having ship-to-ship combat that can then become a boarding party type situation where you bust in there and try and take it down from the inside. It's a very cool idea. That is probably the most appealing part of all of this to me, to be honest. Sinclair said the ships will have a progression system tied to them and players will be able to level them up, upgrade them and modify their abilities. Digital Extremes said Railjack will take Warframe down a totally uncharted path and is being pitched as the next part of a grander vision for the game. Codename Railjack currently has no release date, but it is expected to launch sometime next year. So fans went wild for this. I mean, it was TennoCon, that's why they were there. They wanted this stuff, and this was like the big kind of, you know, news announcements for the games, updates later down the line. So that core community are fully behind this, and it's easy to see why, because it's ship combat, it's boarding ships, it's just more stuff. It's just here, have some free content. Of course, that's really exciting, and it makes you want to take a look at the game every time anything, you know, with any game. Whenever there's a big content update, you always think, oh, it might be worth taking a look to see, you know, what's changed and whatnot. Well, this is a free game, so there's literally no barrier there at all, and the way they've monetized it is really good.
Yeah, we covered it in a video back in December, and we compared how well Warframe was doing compared to everything else, and this being a free-to-play game, and the way they implement the microtransactions in a free. I think it was Meredith Braun, the person whose interview we were covering in the video, and she was saying how they're like a more player-focused. You know, they think about the player first before they implement, you know, all these microtransaction systems, and this is in the wake of the Battlefront 2 scandal with the loot boxes and all that sort of stuff. So they definitely got some great will from the players. The fact that they are treated, they feel like they're being treated fairly, and that's what's important, right? And the fact that they keep producing all this content all the time, and you see from the player figures, every time they come up with a new content update, the players just take a hike upwards, and then they pretty much stay there. It's like every single thing that they bring in, they add in loads of new players to the player pool, which is excellent, and it's a great way to do it.
I've played it a fair bit on the console and the PlayStation. It is very, you know, just on the very basic terms, it's quite a tight game. It feels good to play, and they've got all the basics right, and then they're just building on it with this, like you're saying, building goodwill with the player base and stuff, and giving them loads of stuff for free, and then monetizing it in a fair way to the point, and they acknowledge this themselves, that people support and buy microtransactions because they feel like they should. Because they go, well, this is a good game. I've not spent any money, so I'll just chuck some money at them in terms of the way of microtransactions. That is amazing that they've got that much in the climate that we're in. It's got their players going, I feel like I should buy some microtransactions.
It's only fair that I give them some money.
Yeah, it's unbelievable, and it shows that it can totally work. You don't have to milk people dry. You don't have to shove loot boxes down people's throats and charge 60 quid up front. That you can make it work a different way. And congratulations, I'm very happy for all the Warframe players out there who've got more cool stuff coming their way.
You go Warframe yet again, pushing new ground for free-to-play games. Let us know if you played Warframe, what you think of it down in the comments below. Like the video if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you're new around here, check out more of our content on your screen around about there. Suppose on Patreon using that link there. We'll see you again in the next video. Until then, bye for now.